Hey, friends! Just so you know, we enjoy the swear word and we rely on good old fashioned humor to get through some seriously dark subject matter. At no time do we intend any disrespect toward the victims or families of the victims in the cases we cover. Also, be sure to listen to the end for a few palate cleansing bloopers to reset your mindset. And with that, we thank you for listening and we hope you enjoy.
Hey friends, welcome to Crime Will Tell. I'm Jamie along with my fabulous co-host Carrie.
Hello, how are you tonight?
I am doing pretty damn good. How are you?
Yeah. I'm doing good. It's Sunday evening. So I kind of have the want. I love my job, but
Tomorrow's another work day.
I'm
Speaking of bummers, this case is a total bummer, just like all the other cases that we cover.
not surprised.
So I figure we should probably have like a little cocktail to help soothe us. So
Agreed.
what are you sipping on?
My trusty friend, good old Basil Hayden.
Oh, it's been a while.
She's just the right amount of bite when you need it.
Right.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a Mexican mule, which is just basically a Moscow mule, but with tequila. And it's kind of like a really light margarita. It's fucking
Really?
tasty. Yeah.
Mm. Well, cheers, my friend.
Cheers to you. Clink.
Clink.
We're just going to jump into this one. So
Okay. I'm down for going in blind, man.
just fucking right off the high dive. We're going in. It's going to be a belly flop, but whatever. So on Thursday, May 23rd of 2019, a woman was out walking her dog in Pensacola, Florida. And they were strolling down Idlewood Drive, which is a dead-end road. This is a vacant wooded area known as Clark's Sandpit and is maybe still, or at least was at the time, a common place for criminal activity and a spot where people just dumped unwanted shit.
Hmm.
So it wasn't unusual to find just random crap lying around. But as they were strolling down this dead end road, her dog began pulling really hard toward a large object that was like 15 feet off the road. And as her dog pulled her closer to this object, she saw a blue and gray tarp that was wrapped and tied off at the ends. And she also noticed a horrendous smell. Can you
Oh,
guess where
yeah.
this is going? So
Yep.
she quickly realized that she had probably stumbled upon a decomposing body. And after likely crapping in her pants a teensy bit, she called 911. Escambia County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the scene and confirmed that there was, in fact, a deceased body of a male that had been wrapped just up in a tarp, which I just can't imagine anyone finding that. Upon further investigation, they found that his hands had been bound behind his back with duct tape, and his feet were also bound together.
Oh, so he was restrained.
Yeah. Duct tape was also wrapped around his face and head multiple times, which covered his mouth and nose.
Oh,
The body showed signs of decomposition, but it didn't appear to have been there for more than a few days. So it had started to decompose, but it wasn't
badly
unrecognizable or
Okay.
anything like that. The body was identified using fingerprints and was identified to be 54-year-old Charles Daniel Locke, who lived in Pensacola about 3 miles from where the body was discovered. Now, like I said previously, this was a common dumping ground where people just tossed their random shit. But while investigators were looking at the scene, some items stood out to them. They found pieces of a heavy twine, kind of what would be used like around like a hay bale or something,
Oh,
like that
okay.
kind of twine, but it was orange, and it was clear that it hadn't, like, those pieces hadn't been there long because they hadn't been worn by weather and just being out in the elements. Like, it appeared to be new pieces.
Is that why they stood out? Everything else around it was
Yeah, probably had been there for a while or whatever, and they
yeah.
were just kinda like, "We'll just pick these up," but it doesn't seem like these have been out here very long. And lying in the road near where the body was located was half of a piece of sheetrock or, like, drywall, and on it was also, like, a clear tire track where someone had run over it, and on that
Hmm.
piece of sheetrock was also a single boot print. So, again, they were
Mm.
like, maybe this could absolutely have nothing to do with this body being dumped here, but they made note of it because it didn't seem like it had been left there for very long. Once investigators identified the victim as Charles Locke, they, of course, went to his home, and the property was just completely overgrown with trees and bushes. And at first glance, it looked like it may have been vacant and vacant for some time. It
Yeah.
certainly was not well maintained and cared for. So officers knocked on the door of the home, but nobody answered. And at that point, they didn't have proper clearance to just enter the home. So they kind of did just a quick search around the perimeter of the property. And as they're walking around, they discovered something that set off immediate alarm bells. So on like the property line between Charles' property and his next door neighbors, there was a large trash can sitting near the road, like ready to be picked up, and that trash can was overflowing with pieces of sheetrock and orange nylon rope.
Oh,
And they
interesting.
were like, golly, that stuff looks super fucking familiar. But it wasn't clear if that trash can belonged to Charles or to his neighbor. So after not getting an answer at Charles' house, they walked to the house next door, knocked on the front door, but again, nobody answered there either. Detectives noticed that on the front porch of the neighbor's house, there were full pieces of sheetrock leaning against the house. So I guess there was just like sheetrock all over the goddamn place. So they wanted to figure out who owned that property, and they're like, God damn, this is just like all right here for us.
It's almost like breadcrumbs.
Yeah, exactly. And so they learned that Charles' neighbor was 44-year-old Kalvin Allison, who lived there with his wife Wendy and their two kids. He worked for a utility company, and detectives looked into his background. They learned that he had a criminal record, not an extensive one, but he did have a previous battery charge for slapping one of his neighbors. And a-
Oh boy.
a- apparently, what happened was this neighbor's dog got out and ended up attacking another dog. And his wife went out and ended up breaking up the dog fight.
As Soph starts barking,
Yes, she's like, "What? A dog fight?"
I'm so in love with karma.
She's like, I'll fucking slap him too, motherfucker." Um,
Tell him, come at me.
yeah, she's like, "I'm the fun police." Woof woof. And so apparently this neighbor had like started yelling at Calvin's wife after she had broken up this dog fight, and he thought that he was going to hit his wife or something. So he ended up bitch slapping his neighbor or whatever happened. I don't know. But that was like the one charge that he had on his criminal record.
Hmm.
So after, learning this, officers were like, "Hey, Calvin, El Calvador, you want to come chat with us at the station?
I'm
We've got
sorry,
some
you
quick."
cannot throw. You cannot throw El Calvador. You can't throw that out there and just mosey on by and act like nothing ever happened.
But I did. I just dropped it and
That was
rolled right on.
Oh, that was fabulous. El
Thanks.
Calvador. All right.
So they're like, we have some questions regarding your dead neighbor, not realizing that similar debris had been found near his neighbor's body that they found at, his home. He was like, sure, I'm happy to help out. So, meanwhile, the detectives requested warrants to search both Charles and Calvin's properties, which didn't seem to take long to obtain at all. So, as Calvin sat in an interrogation room, investigators began searching his and Charles' homes for evidence related to the crime. And officers asked Calvin about the trash can, that they had found in the front yard filled with debris. And he said that it was his, it belonged to him, and that the construction debris was from some home remodeling projects that he and his wife had been doing. So he was like, yeah, it's mine, whatever. Calvin told them that his wife and his kids were in Oklahoma visiting his wife's family because she needed to settle some things with her father's estate. He had passed away the year before, so she was making trips back to just kind of get things settled and be with family.
Sure.
So Calvin and his wife were originally from Oklahoma but had moved to Florida in 2015. So they lived in Florida for about 4 years. Investigators began chit-chatting with Calvin in the interrogation room, just trying to make him comfortable and hopefully get him to open up to them. And they were also trying to just like small talk and whatever because they were trying to stall a little bit to allow time for these searches to be completed so that they had a little more
Ah,
information to discuss things with him. And
sure.
Calvin is a big dude. I think that one of the detectives said that he's 6'5". So
Oof.
he's a big motherfucker. But, he seemed to have a friendly and gentle demeanor. He was described as just a good old hardworking Southern boy. Cool. So while detectives are just shooting the shit with Calvin, one of them is actually getting frequent updates by text about any evidence that is being located during the searches at his and Charles' home. So he's just like talking to Calvin, and then I'll look down and be like, and then put his phone down because there's interrogation video of all this. It's funny because the detective's phone is just dinging pretty constantly through this conversation with these text updates because he's getting texts like, "Hey, we found this. Guess what else? Hot damn, look at this." You know what I mean? And he's just like, shit," but keeping it like,
Super low key, very calm, collected.
yeah. And so Calvin, of course, has no clue that these searches are even taking place, but it was probably a little unsettling that the detective kept getting messages but wasn't saying what they were about. It wasn't like, my wife's asking if casserole's good for dinner, or, whatever. Like,
Yeah,
it
just
just,
like the regular notifications and just the regular times that he looked at his phone, it's unsettling because he never said anything.
yeah, and he didn't have it on silent, so it was like he wanted to make sure that Calvin knew he
Yeah,
was getting these updates. It was definitely an intentional move, but it's just kind of
bringing in
funny to
the
watch.
vibe.
Yeah, yeah. So as police are searching the homes, they discovered that the inside of Charles' home was kept up about as well as the exterior. It was pretty fucking gross. It
Oof.
was dirty, it smelled, there was
Mm.
stuff everywhere, and he had a dog named Cookie. I couldn't find any
Aw.
information about Cookie, but I was like, "What?" And so Cookie apparently had like been just pooping and peeing all over the house. So it
Oh.
probably was just smelled awful.
Oh, poor doggy.
Through the clutter, crime scene investigators located two pretty large pools of blood on the carpet
Mm.
inside of the home, leading them to believe that Charles had been killed inside of his house. As detectives were talking with Calvin, he was just like super calm and relaxed. It was like they were just bros hanging out talking. Calvin tells them that he met his neighbor Charles not long after he and his family moved into the house next door to him. He told them that Charles' wife of 17 years had left him like a year or so earlier, and that he had gotten to know his neighbor better at that time. So I was like, oh, poor
Mm.
Charles. After
Yeah.
his wife left, Charles was absolutely devastated. And he didn't
Mm.
have any family in that area. And so he would join Calvin and his family for holidays and cookouts and probably just for company, here and
Yeah.
there. He recently had had a stroke that impacted his cognitive functions. And so he was relying on Calvin and his wife for help at times. And through all of that, they'd become pretty good friends. I would say Charles lived a pretty reclusive life, but he seemed to trust and enjoy being around Calvin and Wendy, and
Okay.
trusted them to help him out.
So he didn't have many people, but he had some people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, Calvin joked with the detectives that Charles' demeanor was similar to Billy Bob Thornton's character in Sling Blade. You know,
What?
Remember? Did you ever
Oh,
see
oh,
that
oh, oh,
movie?
oh. Yes, yes. A long time ago.
It gave a little piece of like what interacting with him might have been like, that he had slowed down some and his
Oh,
speech
I
was
see.
probably changed, but it was also a little, it felt like they were making fun of him a
Like
little bit
characterizing
too.
it that way.
Yeah, so it was
Mm.
like Calvin told investigators that he had last seen Charles on the evening of Sunday, May 19th, so this would have been 4 days earlier. He said he had taken a plate of food over to Charles' house and had stayed for just, about 10 minutes, just chatting for a little bit. And then he and his wife went out to a bar with some friends for a few hours. He said he hadn't seen or heard anything strange that night or any of the days following. His wife and kids had left for Oklahoma on Tuesday morning, which would have been 2 days after he had last seen Charles and 2 days before Charles' body was found.
Oh, okay. So Charles was last seen May 19th, according to Calvin. Calvin's wife and children left Tuesday, the 21st.
And then he was found
And
on
then his body
Thursday.
was found by the poor lady walking her dog.
Yeah,
He was wrapped up in the tarp on Thursday, the 23rd.
right.
Got it.
He said that on Wednesday he had spent some time working in his backyard, that they had an above ground pool in the yard, and he had taken that down and was trying to get grass to grow where the pool had been. But Mr. Green Thumbs had simply just raked the dirt and then watered the absolute shit out of the yard, expecting grass to just magically start growing. He's like, I was just trying to get grass to grow. And they're like, that's not how that works, dummy. You grew mud. Congratulations.
Oh, you mean he didn't even put seed down? He just was thinking,
Yeah, like if I just like
ah, ah.
stir this up and water it good, grass will just start popping up. And so detectives were thinking that instead of that stupid ass explanation, that maybe he was raking and overwatering his yard to get rid of some evidence of something that had happened back
Oh,
there. So they were like,
yeah.
okay, they're just like taking note of everything that he's
Mm-hmm.
saying, taking note of or taking in all of the details that they're getting from these crime scene investigators. And they're like, okay, doesn't not adding up. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Math is not mathing.
yeah. And so detectives also noticed Kelvin's work boots that he was wearing, and they were kind of asking him about it, just in conversation. And he tells them that they're Ariat brand steel toed boots. And that was the exact brand and style of boot that left a print on that piece of sheetrock that was found near where
Oh,
Charles' body was located. So they're
oh
like,
my.
okay, yeah. So as Calvin sits cluelessly chatting with these detectives, they are quickly putting pieces together that seem to lock him in as their prime suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And at no point is he asked to leave or even why he's there, why they're asking him so many questions. It seemed like he really just thought that they were some good old boys hanging out and just chatting it up. But the officers start dropping these little bombs to let him know that they're totally onto his bullshit.
Okay.
They're like, hey, liar, here, just a few things that we've learned. We found sheetrock near Charles' body that is the exact same kind as the pieces you have scattered about your house and property. Literally, like the SKU number, SKU number, or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
printed on it are the exact same numbers.
Okay.
So they're like,
Okay.
and a boot print matching those fucking boots on your dumb feet is on that piece of sheetrock. And a mark from your left front tire on your vehicle is also on that. So his truck had 4 different tires. So they were able to confirm that his left front tire is the one that
Oh
ran
my
over
gosh.
the sheetrock. And the packaging from the tarp that Charles' body was wrapped in was found in his trash. He did not do a very good job covering his tracks.
Yeah.
And the orange twine used to tie up that tarp is the exact same kind that they found in your trash. So they're like just telling him all this, and Calvin's like, uh, they're like, we also found Charles' checkbook and his truck keys inside of your house. So suck on that, Calvin. His like just relaxed demeanor starts to just like
His head
crumble a
starts to
little bit.
droop and
Yeah, he just
yeah.
starts to sag down a little bit. And they must have fast tracked things, or it was just a slow day in the medical examiner's office. But while they are interrogating Calvin, the detectives also received an autopsy report.
Oh wow, that was fast.
Yeah, right? I was like, wait, what? Wow. And that report revealed that Charles Locke's cause of death was blunt force trauma and asphyxiation. The report confirmed that Charles had an injury to his head, which of course would have bled like crazy, which matched, those pools of blood in his house.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that injury wasn't serious enough that it would have killed him due to the duct tape that had been wrapped around his head, covering his nose and mouth. He had actually suffocated. That
Oh
was his
my, that's
cause of death.
awful.
Yeah, isn't that?
Oh,
So, trying to push him and figure out a motive, detectives tell Calvin that while searching Charles' home, they quickly discovered that he was apparently into cross dressing. They
okay.
found some dresses and some fake breasts. Like, who fucking cares, right? Whatever made him feel happy and confident, no big deal. But the interaction between Calvin and the detectives gives me the ick, and we'll get into it a whole lot more. I know that they were just trying to get him to confess, but one of them said, and this is a quote, I think Charles came on to you and shit went bad. And if that's the case, I can buy that. Because if shit went bad and you've got a guy that has homosexual tendencies and you're not a homosexual and he puts his hands on you, and like it went on from there. But it was almost like he was justifying
Yeah.
the crimes that he may have committed against Charles, and also making assumptions that just because he liked to maybe wear a dress every once in a while, that made him gay.
Yeah.
And so that was just kind of an assumption on the detective's part, but he planted that seed. And Calvin's just whiny little turd. He was like, nothing happened. I didn't do it. I didn't do nothing. And for a big guy, he has kind of a Kermit the Frog kind of voice. And I didn't do nothing. And it's just like,
That sounds awful.
yeah. So detectives just kind of keep pushing him, trying to get more information from him. They're telling him that they already have a lot of damning evidence against him. So they're like, just tell us what happened. Come on, man. Like, how did your belongings get wrapped around and nestled near your neighbor's dead body? And it seems pretty obvious that his body was likely dragged through your backyard right where you attempted your idiot grass growing expedition. They're like just feet like telling him all the shit that they have on him. And they're like, just tell us what happened. Just tell us. And the detectives started showing photos of, the evidence that they're getting from the crime scene technicians, as well as photos of Charles' body, which no matter who you are, like that's got to be alarming.
Yeah.
But they told him that they were, going to seize his phone and would be able to track his whereabouts, movements over the past few days. They're just kind of laying it on him. One of the detectives ended up leaving the interrogation room, and his partner remained in the room with Calvin and was telling him, again, another quote, Charles had some weird habits and stuff. I need to know, did it have anything to do with that? Like, tell me what happened, buddy. Playing like, I get it, man. Like what happened because of his weird shit. Like I just the way
Hmm.
they spoke about it bothered me.
Yeah.
And so Calvin finally opened up and said he tried to kiss me and that he was embarrassed and he panicked. On that Sunday evening, when he brought over the plate of food for him, Charles tried to grab him and kiss him. So he ended up pushing him away and apparently pushed him pretty fucking hard because he ended up falling backwards, hitting his head, he thought probably like on a coffee table, and began, just bleeding really badly from this head wound. When asked if Charles died instantly, he just said, "I don't know," which is a big fucking lie because he didn't die right away. He panicked and left Charles bleeding on his living room floor alone. He then went home and said that he thoroughly washed his hands before going out for drinks with his wife and their friends. Once his wife and kids had left for their trip to Oklahoma, he went back to Charles' house to move his body. He used his truck to dump the body the night before it was discovered. The piece of sheetrock apparently had just slid out of the back of his truck when he removed the body, and he just didn't think to pick it up.
Okay.
A dumbass move. Like, it fell out and I just left it and walked all over it and drove over it. Fucking Calvin. So this was kind of his version of how things went down, but this story didn't completely match up with the evidence that was found or the report that had come in from the medical examiner. So there was a large pool of blood in the living room of Charles' home, but there were also bloody drag marks and then another pool of blood in a room towards the back of his house, confirming that Charles was still alive when his body was moved because it was obviously actively
Oh,
bleeding.
yeah.
Each time Calvin went over the events of that night, he mentioned how he spent several minutes washing his hands after returning to his house. Like, he kept going back to that point. But if he simply had just pushed Charles down after he tried to kiss him, why would he need to go like vigorously wash his hands? Unless they had blood or something else on them that he wanted to get rid of evidence. Detectives also didn't understand why Calvin would need to bind Charles' feet and hands and cover his nose and mouth with duct tape if he was already dead. It just didn't make any goddamn sense. It seemed like Charles must have still been alive when he returned to the house. When asked about the tape, Calvin said that he had had a hard time getting Charles wrapped up in the tarp, so he bound his feet and hands, which makes some
Okay,
sense. Like,
okay. I can, yeah.
it sucks, but it makes some sense.
Yeah, when you said that, I was like thinking of like all of the ways in which it would make sense to, I don't know, wrap up a body in a whatever. And like all the reasons why you would want to duct tape the hands behind the back. Wouldn't you think that they would be duct taped in the front?
Yeah, right?
Right. And also, by the time he went back, wouldn't Charles have been in like full rigor?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't,
He wouldn't have been able to do that. He wouldn't have been able
yeah,
to move him, right?
yeah, I wouldn't think
I
so.
don't know.
Shit, I don't know. Like, it just, yeah, exactly. Like, none of it makes any fucking sense. So there wouldn't be a need to bind a dead person. When they asked him why he put duct tape around his face if he wasn't breathing, he just simply said, "I don't know." I, I don't know. Probably is more like it sounded. Because I mean, if it truly was an accident and Charles just hit his head, like, why wouldn't he just call 911 for help?
911. Yeah.
It was apparent that Calvin had beaten Charles, like, with some sort of object that he likely had gotten rid of in the following days, and that Calvin had wrapped that tape around his head to end his life. This would also explain why he spent so much time washing his asshole hands when he returned home, because they likely had his friend and neighbor's blood on them. And that's
Yeah.
all just based on the medical examiner's report. He died because he couldn't breathe from the tape that had been wrapped around. Like,
Man.
yeah. Calvin explained that he put the body in the tarp, dragged it through the house, and then through the backyard. He pushed the body over the fence that was between their properties into his own backyard and then dragging the tarp into his garage and loading it into his truck. He took the body to the dump site and in the process of the evidence at the scene that led straight back to him. So, again, these are his versions of things. After confessing to the murder, detectives allowed Kalvin to call his wife Wendy to inform her of what was going on. And so he's telling her what happened, and she was like in shock. Of course, she just finds out that her husband's under
A
arrest for
murderer?
murder
Yeah.
and a murder of a guy that she had become close with, their friend and neighbor. And so he tells her what happened, and she's like, if it was an accident, why didn't you just say something? Exactly, Wendy. That's what we're all
It's a
thinking.
great question.
And as she is questioning his actions, she asks, again, this is all just on the interrogation, so you can hear this whole conversation because they're on speaker. She asks him, what about Tina? Be honest, Calvin. To which he replied, I didn't have anything to do with Tina. That was all Billy. And so investigators are like, what now? Well,
Circle back on that.
yeah, so we'll come back to that in a minute, but it was just like, Jesus Christ, we're learning a lot today. At the end of the conversation, Wendy tells her whiny ass husband Calvin that she's leaving their kids in Oklahoma, but she's going to make the trip back to Florida. And she says, you made such a bad decision. Like, you've done some stupid shit, but this is beyond stupid. This could have been avoided, Calvin. Agreed, Wendy. So, who the hell is Tina that his wife was referring to in that phone call? And so, after hearing that conversation, one of the detectives, just like casually in conversation, is like, yeah, while you were on the phone, said something about Tina, and they learn that in March of 2014, Wendy's cousin, so Wendy is Calvin's wife, her 41-year-old cousin, Tina Sisk Gavich, was staying with them at their home in Oklahoma. And during that time, Tina went missing.
What?
And good old Calvin was one of the last people to have seen her alive because unfortunately, her remains were found in a shallow grave the following year. She had been dumped on the side of a road in a remote area near Lone Grove, Oklahoma. Her cause of death was undetermined, but she sure as fuck didn't bury herself, so something
Yeah.
bad happened. When Wendy asked Calvin if he killed her cousin during that recorded phone call, he pinned the crime on a friend of theirs named Billy Carter. So that was the Billy that he was referring
Ah.
to. And I think that I couldn't get confirmation, but I believe he said that she was found on Billy's land, that
Oh.
was the land that she was found on. But I think it says a whole lot that Calvin's wife immediately asked him if he was responsible for killing her as well. It seemed like it must have been something that she had suspected for years. Because I
Yeah.
wouldn't just make that leap, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, in addition to killing Charles, investigators learned that Calvin had also been stealing money from Charles' bank account after he was killed. He used his checkbook,
Hmm.
the one that they found in his
Mm-hmm.
house, to withdraw cash in the days after the murder. So I think it was like $800 the first day and then $600 the next 2 days. And then he was brought in for questioning and couldn't do it anymore. But I assumed that he would have likely been like continued doing that until the account was absolutely just tapped.
Drained. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this just proves, I think, that he had no remorse about killing Charles. And it's just a big piece of shit, like a
Hmm.
gigantic dingleberry. Calvin Dwayne Allison was charged with second-degree murder, 1 count of tampering with evidence, and 3 counts of grand theft. He pled not guilty to the charges, of course, saying that his actions were in self-defense, that it was a justifiable use of force, which is such horseshit.
He's saying it's a justifiable use of force because Charles attempted to kiss him.
Yes. Like he was defending himself against a kiss. Like thinking through this, I honestly don't know if I really believe that Charles actually tried to kiss him. It seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, Calvin had taken Charles numerous plates of food. They'd spent a lot of time together, and it didn't seem like any other time he had tried to thank him with a kiss. Maybe Charles threatened to expose something about Calvin, which caused him to panic. Maybe they had some things in common that he didn't want to be exposed. I don't know. But the detective is the one that suggested that Charles kissing him would have been a motive.
Yeah.
And I think that Calvin took that and ran with it because it's like the perfect defense, right? To
Feels
kill
like it.
someone. Like to him, it just was like, oh, the detective gets it. Like, yeah, I'll just run with that. And if he had tried to kiss him, I have a hard time believing that an older man who had recently had a stroke posed much of a physical threat to
Right.
6'5" Calvin. Like a simple, sorry, buddy, I'm married, I'm not interested in you as more than a friend, would have been the proper way to end that exchange with Charles instead of pushing him down with excessive force. I can't figure out how it escalated that quickly and that far. Like it to me, it just seems like there are some big pieces missing, and I
Mhm.
don't know that we'll ever know what
Mm.
really happened. But Calvin's trial took place in October of 2019. With the overwhelming evidence against him and his own admission to the crime, he was found guilty on all of the charges. The following month, Judge Paul Rasmussen sentenced Calvin to life in state prison without the possibility of parole for the murder charge, plus an additional 14 years for the grand theft and the tampering with evidence charges. He also ordered him to pay the court costs and $3,121 in restitution to Charles' estate. And I can't help but wonder how he's going to handle any sexual advances while he's in the clink.
I was just thinking that.
Really? I was like,
Yeah.
oh, Lord,
Oof.
buddy.
He's gonna get a crash course.
Following his conviction, investigators in Oklahoma named Kalvin Allison as a person of interest in the murder of Tina Sisk Gavich. I think they were hoping that once he was locked away, that maybe someone who had information about the murder
Mm.
might finally feel safe coming forward with details that would solve the crime. Because, I mean, Calvin's an intimidating
Mhm.
dude, just
Right.
physically. At this time in April of 2026, her case is still unsolved. And
Mm.
Calvin's ass is going to be behind bars for the rest of his life. So if he did kill her or he knows who did, I really hope that he does the right thing and comes forward because Tina and her family deserve answers and
Yeah.
justice. So the murder of Charles Locke is not a case of self-defense. I'm sorry. And I don't know that we'll ever know exactly what happened that night. If things went down like Calvin said, it's really quite simple to me. A homophobic good old boy was uncomfortable when another man made a pass at him. He panicked, and whatever happened, he ended up killing him. There is no defense for that. If there was a defense to end someone's life every time a person felt uncomfortable by unwanted advances, this planet would be very lightly populated. And most females would have multiple murders under their belts.
Mhm.
Homophobia is gross, and it's a gross justification for taking someone's life or harming them in any way. So I've wanted to cover this case since I heard about it and moved it up my list because I wanted to do it right now because it seems timely with the recent arrest of actor Shia LaBeouf. I don't know. Have you
I have not been.
heard?
I
Okay.
I I heard in the ether that he was arrested. I have no idea what happened, what went down. I don't know anything about it.
Okay. So he was arrested for battery after getting into a fight outside of a bar in New Orleans during Mardi Gras. Now, I'm sure there were plenty of drunken brawls in the French Quarter at that time, But this fight got extra attention because of what caused the fight. Shia hit and headbutted 3 men while using homophobic slurs after he claimed that one of the men, a gay man, touched his leg. He was arrested, of course, was able to post bail, and was released from jail. And during an interview with a TV station, he said this dumb shit. Quote, I'll be honest with you, big gay people are scary to me. I'm like standing by myself and 3 gay dudes are next to me touching my leg. I get scared. I'm sorry if that's homophobic, then I'm that.
Wow.
Yeah. So instead of saying, please don't touch me, or, that makes me uncomfortable, please don't, and just walking away, he decided to fight them in the street, shirtless, while calling them hateful names. And a lot of people defend his actions, just reading through comments that would basically just commenting that, I'd do the same thing if that happened to me. Mostly men, commenting who likely aren't secure in their sexuality and might be a bit closeted, or are just hateful assholes who think violence is the answer when they're in an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
The gay panic defense, or the homosexual advance defense, has actually come up in multiple crime cases, like all over the world. Because apparently, unwanted advances from a gay person are much worse than unwanted advances from a straight person. I have never heard of a pushy asshole who can't read the room defense, or he wouldn't leave me alone even after I asked him to defense. The gay panic defense is basically just a victim blaming legal
Mm-hmm.
strategy used when a straight person reacts violently to a queer person due to what they allege were unwanted sexual advances towards them. Its purpose is to explain, or likely to excuse, the crimes committed in hopes of getting a lighter sentence or to have the sentence erased altogether. Like, I am not okay with anyone disrespecting someone else's space or comfort, and certainly never forcing themselves on someone else. But when those actions are only seen as a problem if they are perpetrated by a certain group of people, it's simply an issue of hate and discrimination. If Shia LaBeouf had women that he wasn't interested in touching his leg, would he have dragged them out into the street and beat them up? No, he wouldn't. Honestly, it's because he felt like most women have felt more times than they would like to, and he didn't
Right.
like it. I
Yep.
hate this shit so fucking much. Fortunately, though, the gay panic defense has been banned in multiple states across the US. So that's something that's
Good.
like promising. I know you and I have had these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it doesn't happen to males too, but females in particular, I can guarantee you could walk up to any female and be like, tell me a time that somebody made you feel really uncomfortable and they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't leave you alone. Tell me a time that somebody touched you when you didn't want them to, or
Mm-hmm.
just said stuff that was really inappropriate and really offensive. And
Yep.
if we all acted with that defense that, like, oh, I'm just going to be able to stab this motherfucker and get away with it or whatever, like, there would be so much crime.
Oh
Because
my gosh. Women would be savage.
yeah, but when you have a bunch of dudes like, nah, it's okay if we do it, but if a dude does it to me, no, nope, I'm gonna kill him.
Oh my God. It doesn't make it, you're not, you're trying to make it make sense and it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. So I don't get the reasoning. And like I said, there's just like there's not enough. I don't know what happened that night between Charles and Calvin.
But wasn't Charles in a vulnerable state, right? He was recovering from a stroke.
Yeah,
And even where I'm going with this is even if he did make an advance, he's not going to be doing it very fast, right? He's like the
right.
sloth that's working at the DMV. I feel like Calvin would have had time to duck, bob, and weave.
Yeah,
So the self defense argument doesn't hold water, and the gay panic defense doesn't hold water. None of it makes sense. It's stupid. And I feel like with all the evidence that you went through, how everything, like how it all literally it was like Calvin worked really hard to tie it all up in a nice little bow and just present it just ever so
Yeah.
gently to the detectives and investigators. If I were on that jury and you have all this evidence that you just went through, and I'm looking at this, you can't really get much more smoking gun than that aside from somebody literally videotaping the event, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm on a jury, the self-defense is it can't pass the red face test is what I'm saying.
And I just feel like there must have been, like, it wasn't a dig on Calvin. Like, if he had been like, "Hey, Wendy, call 911. Charles just tried to kiss me. I pushed him down. He's really hurt. He tried to kiss me." That's not a bad reflection on Calvin. It's not
Right.
like people are gonna be like, "Oh, Calvin's a big old gay wad." No, that's not gonna happen. So I don't know what made him, number one, kill Charles, but, like, try so hard to cover it up.
But he did such a shitty job about it.
Yeah, he really did. But I just have, like, a feeling that maybe Charles knew something about him that he was trying to shut him up or something,
Yeah.
because there was no reason to hide what happened. Like, there was no reason to not get him help if it was simply an accident, and then to go back and wrap duct tape around to make sure he died. And the other thing too is I couldn't figure out from his, like, account of it, if he shoved him down, realized that he was hurt, and, like, immediately duct taped his face to kill him, or worse, that Charles was still alive 2 days later when he went back.
That's what I was thinking.
And that's when, because that was kind of my impression, but I couldn't really figure it out because he didn't say he was alive when I put the duct tape around him. Like, he denied that he was, like,
Yeah.
he was dead when I went back, but the evidence contradicts that.
Suggests otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if Charles laid there for 2 days
I hope not.
or a day or
God, I hope
however
not.
long it was before like Kelvin went back and actually put the tape on him because he realized that he was still alive and needed to end it. Like, there's just so many questions and I just can't.
Either way, he suffered.
Yeah, he did. And somebody that he cared about and trusted and thought was
Was
his friend.
obviously was like a surrogate family for him.
Yeah.
Poor Charles.
With
On
that,
that note,
yeah. Goodbye, Carrie.
bye, Jamie. You're grooming yourself like you're a motherfucking kitty cat.
I guess we have to.
Stupid ass grin on your face.
I have a gnat in my throat.
That's why I sound stupid.
Let me have some more Mexican mule.
Hey, Carrie. Yes, Carrie. Be natural.
Well, you're doing it right now, whiner.
I forgot my point. What was I gonna say?
Woo.